undulating countenance, and yet again oblivion. When was it that our words became so mature? Slight voice and a subtle tension, that subtlety of how the very tips of your lips quiver. We descend from this bizarre world, nothing more to do or say, with no end, and the strangeness of that dream in which I continue to flit between the same pages. And the synapses of my frontal lobe begin their dance. That comforting rhythm will play no longer. Worthless music and worthless fashion, unfamiliar women seeking esoteric sensations, our tympanic membranes softly molested by scissors, and in that moment where our bodies were captured, our very beings leave the room to which we were once confined. And as if our treasure boxes were turned over and emptied, no longer do we seek to escape from singing our songs that nobody else could hear. But you already knew of my cowardice better than anyone I had ever known, or anyone I could ever know. Our inevitable suicides that we were so ready to flee, the willingness of our self-corruption and the pursuit thereof, the midnight sound of trains passing, and how we both laughed at all their voluptuous fashions so far removed from our own. Does the howling wind make it easy to see the effort in which it is taking me to make but a single step? And rather than save the world, we but bided time until it split open before us, and we soon followed, deluded into the belief that perhaps the act of drowning itself would be our salvation until we could do not more than drown. And the sound of fireworks in summer, how voices from all extant directions could be heard, how many times is it now? That incessant beat, cacophony of melody, so obscene and lewd, how it slovenly flows and mixes, and girls of the city forced to carry weapons know not fight or flight humanity, gasping at the mere sight of the moon, feeling the teeth in my mouth which do not quite align, counting the days before another birthday. How many years has it been, or perhaps will it be? And laughing, for without the microphone they are too weak to sing from the heart. I wish I could tell you the answers you seek, of life and love and more, but I lack them myself. Impeccably accurate songs and their spawn play inside my head as my gaze is fixed against the wall. I watch the dance of phantom spider legs. It brings me great mirth to say, "Oh, what wonderful and natural movements their legs have!" All I can understand are the things before me, none of that which is beyond or perhaps inside me, and I am so very sorry for that. A drowning, flightless bird requires wings of water. The strands of hair binding me to my bed frame are before my eyes transmuted into semi-permeable and translucent embers. And though I wanted to save the spiders, I keep seeing them whenever I close my eyes, imposing, battle-ready. In the calm of the storm, a voice I have not one memory of ever having heard before whispers my name, and she tells me, sharply and sweetly, "Write it down." And at once I am filled with agony. I writhe and sob and scream foreign curses into a pillow before I can do no more than ask, nay, beg, for her to tell me the answer. "What do you want me to write?" My half-mustered retort. My own pretension tells me that I am sad. I cannot know the beautiful truth she wishes me to put to words, but somehow I know this is a lie. I know that all I wish is that I could ever capture the fleeting iridescence of a voice so maiden, by any means. Sun-hidden, severity of facial trim. Oh, what tremendous pain to be from the spittle of earthly passion forsook. How a ray of light is so quick to ruin my lovely melancholy of gray. I consider Queen's pawn to d4. The treachery of it all, I am aghast. Left to my own silencing of the self, yes, no longer will my subtle motions dance in their intrepid ways, but in the style of tardive dyskinesia. I take a small white pill to feel better, to feel nothing. Thienobenzodiazepine. I too will join them, so addicted to their technicolor tragedies and Freudian fantasies. Men's bathroom and chalky powder and bliss. Glossy-eyed and gaining speed, we danced. In artificial disco ball twilight. Faster, faster. Slashing into the rink ice, we laughed and played, and you fell over a few times, but so did I, so it was okay. Stealing into the night, awaiting the bus, I noticed the old homeless guy wasn't there tonight. We'd never see him again. Your shower head was weak, as usual, but I'd almost grown accustomed to it by then, so it was okay. I'd hogged the water for a while, mostly because it felt good, but also because I loved to look at your breasts and hips and ass covered in dew like cold morning. But you weren't mad at me for leaving you in the cold part of the shower, so it was okay. In opulence, we wither. In imperfect totality, suddenly, without great crash or din, reality becomes too real. The threads that bind your mouth together feel splitting at the seams. You want to scream, but the screaming begins in Borodin and ends in as of yet unridden bedlam that breaks you, cochlea boiling with hallucination. Alleluia, Kyrie eleison. The story becomes non-linear, and you're scared of what comes next or before. So cold I burned my shirt. Sorry, Mother. It wasn't enough to go back and pretend nothing had happened. I watched him die there, and it scared me. I need myself a spot to drink and bleed the sorrow away for 5 or 10 years. Blackest bile in his eyes, I remember the face of oblivion underneath the stars, how the luminosity of millions d'étoiles could not bring light once more to his eyes. But what rends me with terror more than all else is to know that the face of oblivion is not more than that of a man's. Smugly trading corner couplets, with their severed gestures and immaculate tubes, trading me just a drop, a boire. But you'd leave me too parched in endless cul-de-sac daydreams, sweat reeking of substituted cathinones because nothing else was there for me to wake up to. Because the poetry is the only way I can speak to you. We are vile creatures virtued in disguise, restless and without anodyne. Breathing fractals of orange lamplight cascade through the tree leaves to our bodies, performing their internecine death duets. Outlander, Requiem, Paean, basking in the simple profligacies of our living, fucking to insulate our sin from theirs, from their inimical innuendos, hiding away while love still burns in our innards and thighs, camber of your small breasts. I'm eerily aware of your every breath. At last, lust overflows into humid summer night. Me, the turpentine Zingata, an insoluble imbecile in soluble dreams. The first time I ever once smelled in that dicacious land of the thief of unwakefulness. Honeydew patch of slumber, it was your voice, all scathing criticism and whiskey. And it was all breaking down, of course. The walls and the Hugo Simberg paintings and the texture of the scenery of it all. I knew it to be a dream. Moon dripping with blood like honey or honey blood. And your face became mine, and my breath was barbed wire and burnt corked. And how I couldn't scream. How sound could not be rend from my throat or diaphragm. How there was no air to which sound could be birthed. Just a night of many, y'all. Close the portcullis on it, on me, and steal into the solitude of a bottle. And when I awoke again, my breath was the rosy miasma of cheap vodka, clad in dismembered countenance in the sharp amber daggers of delirium tremens at 6:59 a.m. under the emetic and blinding lamp that read liquor. And he knew I looked like death incarnated onto a plywood sheet and sundered in half with the dirty cistern of a woman's shithouse. And I knew he knew. and he sold me another 2 half gallons of booze anyway. People are sometimes lovely that way, and some are not. And again I traveled outwards and not upwards, and again all the faces were fashioned, and hid they utter shittiness under the guise of semi-immaculate pleasantries. And again all the eyes were mannequin eyes, and again all my eyes were warm tears and vodka. A dying man out of many, gravely ill silhouette slipping into the grave of twilight, taste buds all bile and the mauve taste of blood, and the choir of the common conscience against my fucking ears again and again. Why so somber? Why so somber? Great pretenders on waxen wings, I cannot share in your unconscious conscience. Leave me to be to drown myself in it all, while the tender earth swiftly awaits your fall, your dysprosium hearts with nary a troy fucking ounce of compassion therein, damning yourselves with the super earthly, while I damn myself with that which is all too earthly indeed. It's very possible that we're both wrong. My drunken and vicious outrage of words spat through tar-stained teeth dripping onto paper like delinquent tears. All the while there is no living man to be seen. Again and again, all I have and all I am is the gentle closedness of my eyes forever. Lobotomy eyes in a withered lecture, yes, those with the ceaseless and sharp gaze of their Death Adder countenances. Just nothing and rotting. That's the sum of us in our brazen pilferings, nothing and rotting. The intraversible futility of this idiot ghost that I am, all uncalculated and clumsy indifference to all the carefully crazy. And too much of everything is carefully crazy. I am the brief promise of a smile among all the delirious and seething cabbages, a corseted existence, so as not to spill into the sunset or into the freeway or into anyone or anything else. And yet, this unconditional ally I know as separateness leaves me always, so strangely, nakedly, vulnerably bored. I've a lot of time to mull it all over. The passage of time like a phantom idle bleeding, only the blood never clocks in and shows face. It's as though a wound that by all rights ought to be able to be seen for how obvious it seems and still nothing. Just the margin feeling of decay, a tertiary uncomfortability you cannot shake with all the perturbing beauty of the bad dream. But it's not in terms so certain. Nothing is. The world at large blanketed in a viscous ridiculousness, giving all its content the irreal and tentative sheen of the floating bubble under precarious and miraculous surface tension, a transient and precious luster unique to things that just barely are. We are like torn paper on galvanized iron sheets, both things just as preposterous as the other, two bizarre uglinesses refracting each other's light. But then again, all my attempted abstractions of things seem to throw the fight. Smithereens, it all comes down. My mother had spoken drunkenly, beautifully to me as a boy when the Columbia exploded. I don't think I've ever heard anything that made quite as much sense, before or since. It was one of those phrasings that escaped her mouth almost involuntarily, and scared her, and me too, because it seemed like something it wasn't possible for a human being to say so succinctly and perfectly at exactly the time it needed to be said. I don't think I've ever understood poetry the way that she could speak sometimes. Hell, I don't think I've ever understood how to be a drunk like she could be either. Sometimes people like that, while being seemingly without talent in anything in particular, are so very, very gifted at the art of being themselves, hermetic and brilliant and without any effort in the world. Some people are made of things like that, and are all the better for it. Some people like me seem to be haphazard plasterings of cornered fury and cornrowed mischief and time clocks and televisions and all the other bullshit that seems to litter both streets and lives. And I cannot help but be left to wonder what in the hell it all means, while the woman trots victoriously to the restroom, the awful light of an unshaded light bulb claws its way into your eyes, an unmuffled engine popping like the 4th of July. What in the hell is this place that I reside in? What exactly is it that I'm always in the middle of? And some nights it feels like I'm on the edge of grasping something big, a memory maybe, of something or somewhere else, a vague outline of a justification finally for this constant and pervasive feeling of my own internal misplacement here. Almost there, and then when my mind finally arrives, the memory is just gone. The memory and the words, someone took them when I needed them most. 2 tickets to Icary, where every day is August 32nd, and home to Val de Lau, where no one is playing with the clocks. Nightbirds curiously gorging themselves on the stuff that grows around peach pits, and you standing with your gorgeously chapped lips and eyes like decadent daylight full of dreams and disaster both. And me not knowing what to say, I let forth a steady tone with my voice so as not to offend you, with my bludgeoning silence. Wanton streams of the controlled chaos called beauty radiating from your skin wholly, perceptible to eyes naked and not. You just watched me for the longest while I'll ever know, until the night birds flew off to become day birds, leaving behind the orgiastic massacre of fruit flesh and seed in their stead, until the sun dove below the sudden horizon, and moonlight cooked us younger with her tender rays, until I realized in abrupt perfection that nothing would be nicer than to die in the snow globe of this very moment with you. Until I woke up. Drank myself into and out of and back into a stupor. Seditiously drunken and excoriatingly stupid, I melted gracefully into the cynic and cistern-like twilight and found myself by the railway tracks, far away from landing territory. I ended up at a sheet of plywood with the graffiti on the wall behind. The Light Way, it read. I knew I was where I was ought to be, maybe all along, too. I thought I was dying from the heat for a few hours, then I became inexplicably serene. Train spotted until morning light. In the night, searching for my lost phone, I realized how profound fire is in the darkness, when you most need it. 100,000 pounds of steel rushed by at disastrous expedience. Our nation's continental veins bellowed in abject cacophony, bedlam of machinery rupturing my eardrums on iron rail. The hot night air became so very cold for a brief moment as it tore past me, vanquishing my makeshift torch's fire, leaving me in the darkness the train left behind for me. The moonlight was bright enough to read, so I had a date to keep with Celine, perhaps my only friend. Wishing you good luck and kindness in all of our ever-evolving worst semi-mental breakdowns ever. Emaciated and now quiet once cacophonies give birth to the deafening silence of today. All we have is the methodical hum of factories fashioning infatuation out of polyvinyl chloride to drown out the maddening vacuum of muted sound that spills from the pores of every city, and every rattling radiator in some grandmother's basement, and every deteriorated newspaper stand with a creaky door. My love goes out to you, O clandestine cartographer, your platonic and sun-bathed heart, held so gently out of sight from the watchful eyes of above and below, and of the man you sleep next to at night for fear, and rightfully so, that they should tear away your soulful flesh core from your very breast, and dine in egregious bouts of hate and hedonism upon the love that dwells therein, their endless ritual toil in search of miserable fixes for their chronically unsparkling humility. O you, silent most of cartographers, Tear into my skin with the satin of your nails. Won't you carve unto me the path to myself? Are you not my mirror, dear cartographer? Not the reflection of your eyes, but the very flesh of your body, gorgeously seeping with the plumpness of self-love? Am I not your mirror, basking in your painfully unaffectionate gaze, a look one can only truly rend upon oneself? Tell me, cartographer, was it that I trusted in myself too much, or have I never trusted in myself enough? Was self-desecration the means to my salvation, or have I merely expedited my damnation? Why do I value the lives of others, but loathe to live my own? I am lost, my lovely cartographer. It is as though every landmark that should by rights exist standing about has vanished into the depths of my vision, compromised by torment. The ground bears no distinction and no tracks. Please, tell me, cartographer, how do you draw a map of a place with nowhere to go? Fish formula and bio rings, but they die anyway. In the midnight howl of basement tenement halls adorned with 50-watt bulbs and the smell of sweet ammonia, and homeless people afraid of hospital stays for fear of disulfiram and needles and force-fed scotch, smoking their last cigarette butts to stay out of the rain, drinking surgical spirit, somehow smarter than the college kids, dry-humping the professor's ego until they find themselves in their assigned cubicle, obsequiously slouching and lobotomized, bisected tongues and unconscious conscientiousness, more fucking flags than convictions, more opinions than pets, unlearned until they can't learn anything from anybody, when you can learn anything from anybody. The push-or-scrape argument again when there might as well be no crack for 700 miles, or however far until dawn is. And the kid, asleep behind the parking lot dumpster, sheltered under garbage-lid roof, 16% battery and no mobile data, but enough heroin in his pocket to get through tomorrow without begging, sleeps soundly through the rain.